Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Just a Recording Podcast, where we have conversations with individuals that think differently and challenge the status quo with success and valuable lessons. This week's episode is a part 2 from a few episodes ago with my man John Kornegay. This week is with his wife Santana, and I am so excited to bring you this episode. We dive deep into her perspective of everything we talked about regarding marriage, open relationships, being different, being a lesbian in this new community of LGBTQ, and just what that means for them moving forward in their relationship. I'm really excited for you to go ahead and listen to this, so let's go ahead and get into it. Appreciate you, fam. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Just a Recording Podcast. I am your host, Patrick Moen. Thanks for joining us this week. I am really excited to bring you this episode. For those of you who've been following along the podcast, 3 episodes ago, I interviewed a good friend of mine, John Kornegay, and we had a very in-depth conversation, not only about his personal life, but also his marriage and this new evolved marriage in which he is having. And we talked a lot about his wife, and we had the ability to, well, we didn't have the ability to have her perspective. And the podcast just got amazing feedback. And so I'm really excited to bring you the woman's perspective of this new evolved relationship that she has with John. And I'm actually really honored that she's here today. And I've known of you, but this is the first time that we've actually met. John has spoken so highly of you, and every time that we're together, he just talks the world of you and Langston, and it's just an honor to be in your presence and to meet you. And so anyway, I want to introduce Santana. So go ahead and say what's up.
What's up?
So, did you listen to the podcast?
I did.
Yeah?
I listened to the whole thing.
And what did you think after you listened to it?
I thought it was interesting, but I thought that it would have been even more interesting if I had been there.
Right.
Because he can only say his experience. He
Mm-hmm.
can't really say my experience or
Right.
what I was going through or anything like that. So it was interesting just in general, but I loved it.
Cool. Well, I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
And we can kind of dive in and unpack some things. So first, where are you from? And tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
Okay.
Grew up there. Grew up in a upper middle class home. Nothing crazy, just a normal childhood. Then after, high school, I went to college for a couple of years, and that didn't work out. My parents didn't really, at first they started helping me, and then they stopped helping me with school. And then I didn't want to stay in Detroit. I was like, I got to figure things out. So then I went to the Navy. I was a areographer's mate in the Navy, and that's basically a weather forecaster or weather technician. And the Navy took me to many different places, but I ended up in California. And after I got out, I stayed out there, and then I lived there for almost 7 years or so, and then moved here, and here I am.
So growing up, both your mom and your dad were still together?
No, my mother and my stepfather. I don't really have a relationship with my biological father.
Okay.
I know that there was some issues with my mother and my biological father, but to make a long story short, he wanted more women, and she wanted him. From what I know, I can only say what I know, and it just didn't work out. So him and I really don't have a relationship at all.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you have any siblings?
I have 3 stepsisters, and I think with my father, I have 3 brothers. But
Your biological father?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When was the last time you heard from your biological father?
Wow. The last time would have to be, I think, 2004. 2003, I decided to find him on my own. And my friend's mother, she worked for the police department or something like that. I don't know her title, but she was able to find people, and she found him. And he lived literally 7 minutes from my parents' home, which was interesting.
Whoa.
And to make a long story
In Detroit? In Detroit. Okay.
Yeah. And to make a long story short, I went to my friend took me to his house, and the first time I went, his wife was there. If you see a picture of my mother, everybody says I look just like her. So when she opened the door, she knew exactly who I was. And she was like, we don't want any. Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe she doesn't know who I am. But in hindsight, when I, would think about it, I'm like, she knew exactly who I was.
Right.
A couple of months went by, and I was like, hey, can you take me again? So I went again. And that time my father was there, and he opened up the door, and it literally looked like a ghost had walked by him, because he turned just pale. And he looked at me and he said, we don't want any. And
he said the same thing?
He said the same thing. And I looked him dead in his eye, and then he looked me back, and then I just started bawling, and then I walked away. And then he was like, okay, wait, come back. I know who you are. And then he basically said that my mother kept him from seeing me, just all these things. And I was like, whatever. And we kind of had a relationship for from 2003 up until 2004. And the last time that I saw him, I went to his place of business because we would talk, and he would give me money. But something told me to never be around him when we were alone, if that makes any sense. I don't know what it was, but
it's just a sense that you felt?
It was just a sense. He would come up to my job, or he would come up to my school at the time. But the last time I saw him, he was just like, well, I haven't seen you in a few months. Stand up, turn around. I'm like, okay. My aunts would say that when I was a kid. No big deal. And it's summertime, Detroit, hot. I got on little tank. I'm 19, shorts, whatever. I'm like, okay. And he's like, I don't think I can see you anymore because your body reminds me of your mother's body when she was your age. And in that moment, I'm like, right, you said you were going to give me $500. Where's it at? And then when I got in the car, I'm like, did he just say what I think he said? And I haven't seen him since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you were 19 when that happened?
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's a big thing to unpack from your biological father.
Yeah.
Did you hate him for it?
No.
Yeah.
No, it was, I was thankful for it. My mother never, ever spoke bad about my biological father. She showed me pictures. She told me about him. But the last memory that I had of him was when, before my mother got with my stepfather, she was with my father, obviously, and we lived together. We lived in Texas together. We came to Detroit, Southfield, Michigan, and we had a place. And the last memory was him hitting her. And I don't know, it's weird how the brain works because typically 2-3-year-olds, they don't really remember things like that. But I remember the apartment we were in, all the colors. There was a train going by, so I remember the train noise. And he pushed her on the floor, and I tried to push him back, and he picked me up and threw me on top of her. And that next day, we left. So it's like, that was my last memory, but my mother never spoke bad about him. But it was like, it was something inside that wanted to know who he was, because I'm growing up with this man that's, acting as my dad, but who is my father. So that it was like something I needed, if that makes any sense, on my own without my parents. So yeah.
Did your mom support you did you tell her that you were searching?
No, I didn't tell her.
You told her obviously after?
I told her after, because I didn't want her to stop me, and I didn't want her to taint it. And I didn't know if she would or if she wouldn't. I didn't think she would, but just that small, what if? I was like, I need to do this on my own. Right. So I did, and I told her about a year later, and she was mad.
She was mad at you?
Oh, yeah. Well, she wasn't mad at me. She was just mad at the outcome. Because,
I got it. Yeah. She was mad that both his wife and him said, we don't want any.
Well, not even that. It was more so the stand-up turnaround. I didn't even
comprehend that part of it.
Yeah.
That's so strange.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that has affected you in a childhood trauma sort of way? So witnessing your dad beat your mom, trying to search him out, getting that type of feedback, and has that stayed with you, or have you been able to compartmentalize and really address some of those things?
That's a really good question. And I'm only saying that because recently I realized that I had a lot of childhood trauma, that certain things I realized triggered that. And it's literally, me and my therapist are starting on that this Friday, tomorrow. And I didn't even think of that, until you said it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It never was something that I cried about it because him and I didn't have an emotional relationship. I have more of a father-daughter relationship with my stepdad. Like, you can't say anything bad about my stepdad. He is literally amazing. He is my dad. But with my biological father, there's no emotion there, if that makes any sense. So when he said it, okay, whatever, $500. You said you were gonna give it to me. I'm 19. Give me money,
Right.
So later on, no, I don't know if it was a trauma or not, but I'll find out.
Yeah. We're
we'll
you're going to find out. All right. So you were basically an only child.
Not yes and no. My mother and my stepdad got married in 91.
Okay.
And I have a stepsister that I grew up with.
How much? So she's...
We're 5 months apart.
Oh, really?
Same age.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
No.
Were you guys close?
Then yes, now no. I wish we were.
Yeah.
But I think we're very different. But if I were to text her right now, we'd start talking. It's one of those type of relationships.
Yeah.
If I went home, we could hang out. But we're not like, girl, let me tell you about. No, we're not like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Has your perception of how you were raised and how you grew up and the dynamic that you were brought up in, does that come up when you're parenting Langston, or do you think about how you want to be, not how you had it?
Yes, very much so. When it comes to parenting style, when it comes to, obviously you take some of the morals, values that your parents instilled in you, and it kind of stays with you. But it's also like, as our generation gets older, more knowledge comes out. So it's like, okay, let me take this foundation, but then I also can add to it or tweak it a little bit. But also, growing up, there was a lot of trauma. My parents beat us sometimes, or when it came to me coming out, that was a lot to deal with. So, of course, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, so growing up in Detroit, you and John knew each other growing up, right? What age did you meet John?
15, 16?
Yeah.
Yeah, we met in high school.
And were you getting into trouble as a kid, or?
No, I was very soft-spoken, very timid, shy, to myself. Like, I was different. I'm over here listening to like Aerosmith and like Alanis Morissette, and all my friends are like, "You're weird," because like we're listening to like Destiny's Child, and I'm like, right, let me get Korn on real quick. So yeah, it was just,
wow,
I was
Korn.
a little bit, I don't want to say weird, but I would get like talked about, but me and John met in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what made you go into the military?
My parents. I would say, I don't want to say my parents. You know what? Let me take that back. No, it wasn't my parents. I was actually at the time working at Cedar Point. I don't know if you ever heard of Cedar Point, but it's like an amusement park in Ohio. And I wanted to be in school. My parents wouldn't really help me with school like that. And I would get many different excuses, but I think the underlying excuse was because I was gay. And it never was said, but it was implied, if that makes any sense. And I was like, all I want to do is go to school. All I want to do is just like make something of myself. And I didn't know what to do. I felt like it was a dead end because I didn't have any support. So one of my friend's fathers, I talked to him about it, and he's just basically like, if you go into the military, what is it going to do for you? And I was like, well, from research, it'll help me go to school. It'll help me travel. It'll help me grow. And he was like, there's your answer. And I was like, that was really simple. Wow.
Yeah.
And then I left Cedar Point and I joined.
So I'm glad that you said it because I didn't want to bring it up. When did you know that you were gay?
Wow. I would say I understood it. Whatever year Britney Spears came out with Oops, I Did It. No, Baby Hit Me One More Time, excuse me.
Yeah.
That's when I understood it. I don't know what year that was, but it was like I knew that I was looking at women as a kid or girls, and it was just like, nope, you're supposed to like so-and-so. So I would do that. But then as I got older, I was like, okay, all right. And then it's like you have more, it's like you get it in a way, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes sense at all, but as I got older is when I understood it, because I feel like there's a difference.
So you, while you were growing up, were trying to talk yourself out of like this feeling or this emotion that you had towards the same sex.
Yeah, I would just fight it.
Right.
Or this is what you're supposed to do. This is normal.
Right, because
okay,
it wasn't
cool.
It wasn't quote unquote normal.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and that,
especially in Detroit.
Oh, for sure. But not even in Detroit. In my household, my parents, my mother was a secretary of the church. My dad was a deacon, and then he later on went to become the treasurer. Yeah. So I grew up in the church. I don't know if I said that, but I grew up in the church, Christian, non-denomination. We're at church Sunday, Wednesday night Bible class, vacation Bible school during the summertime, winter camps, like all those things.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You were in the thick of it.
Right. Yeah. So it was like, no. Or
so
like,
not only did you have the identity of like, this isn't normal for me to feel this way, but you're also thinking probably in the back of your mind, God is going to shun me and I'm not going to be able to go to heaven because of these thoughts or feelings.
No. That's interesting that you say that. It was more so my parents. I never ever thought of that. It was more so, what will my parents think? And that was with anything. I got to get these good grades because my mother is going to be mad at me. Or if I don't do this, she's going to be mad at me. Or what is my dad going to say if I do this? So it was never about religion. It was about my parents.
That's interesting, especially coming from just a strong religious family.
Yeah.
Did you have strong religious beliefs growing up? No.
Mm-mm. At first,
you just went just because your parents made you, or?
Yeah, it was like, okay, this is what we do. Every Sunday we go to church, Wednesday, whatever. But as I started getting older, I'm like, why? Who? Where did this come from?
Right.
This doesn't make sense. And then, no, you're not supposed to think like that. You're supposed to have faith. And I'm like, that's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. No offense to anybody that has, faith-based beliefs. But it's like, for me, it's nothing wrong with having faith or being a part of a religion, but it's also nothing wrong with questioning why.
Right.
So that was since high school.
I think it's healthy to have those questions.
Yeah.
Because if you can't question something, then why should I believe?
Right.
Yeah. So what age did you tell your parents?
I never told them.
You never told them?
No, it came out. Yeah.
So, all right, let's unpack that. So how did it come out?
And I could be telling this wrong because I'm only going off of what my mother has said, I believe, but I believe my school called her and let her know. And I was...
Really? Your high school?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know,
like a guidance counselor, or
either a guidance counselor or principal. I went to a Catholic school, so the school was very small.
That makes sense.
And if I'm not mistaken, at that time, my mother was not working. We were good. My mother wasn't working at the time. I could be wrong though, but I believe I believe it was the principal that told her, and at that point, she took me out of the school. And it's interesting because I posted about this on my Insta story recently, and one of my peers was like, I remember that. I remember how upset you were and how much you were crying. And my mom was irate in the school. Yeah, it was It was bad. It was bad. But it came out. And then I hid it. She put me into a different school.
What grade were you in?
At this point, I was in 11th grade.
Okay.
Because that was traumatic for me because I had been at that school since 9th grade. And all my friends, all of that was so traumatic because I lost that. And then I was picked up and put into a completely different school, all new people. It was just like, okay, well, the bright side is I can act like I'm this other person. And that's what I did. But I hid it. I completely hid it. So
You completely hid it at the new school or at the
new school with my parents. And then towards the end of 11th grade, going into 12th grade, the archdiocese or something like that was losing money. So they merged my school with another school. So then that was another thing. But then I'm like, great, I could, be a whole new person here too. And then I'm like, I can hide it here. I had a boyfriend, hid it from him. Also had a girlfriend though. So it was just, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
So you dated guys before?
Yeah. Not exclusively, if that makes any sense.
But they thought it was exclusive.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
I'm not saying any names, of
Yeah,
course.
no,
but
yeah,
they thought
you.
it was exclusive, but I had a girlfriend each time.
So your first high school before you got removed, everyone knew that you were gay.
I don't know. I think they kind of knew,
right?
But I was hiding it.
Were you you were dating a boy from the school and a girl?
No, the girl was at a different school, which was perfect because and then I was really close to this guy. I loved him to death because he was always like a brother to me. But he was on the basketball team and he would take me to go see her. It was just like, even for prom, my best friend at the time, he took me to see my ex-girlfriend. And then he took me to see my real girlfriend. So it was just like I was able to hide it. And the people that I trusted, they knew what was going on in the home, but they respected it, but still was like, I got you, you good. So yeah, it was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, I would say from 15 up until 18, it was interesting.
You were dating boys and girls. Yeah. And you just got moved to a different school.
Yeah. 2 new schools within a year.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
So what was it like going to the new school?
The first one was great. It was awesome. It was small. Okay. So the first new school I went to, I loved it. Everybody was super nice, very small. It was a Polish school, which was interesting. Also Catholic, but I hid it. I didn't tell anybody. Nobody knew. The second school was also interesting because at first nobody knew. And I think it was one particular girl there. I don't remember her name, but she started telling people about me. And I don't know how she found out, but it started trickling down into the school that I was gay. I don't even know where she got it from. It could have been my sister because me and my sister all went to the same middle school. So that I don't even know how that happened. But once that happened, I'm like, I got to figure this out. I got to get a boyfriend real quick. And I did.
To hide the fact that people were starting to find out that you were gay.
Because I felt like it was going to trickle back to my mom. And I didn't want her to know, because then it was like when she found out, she put me on punishment. So I couldn't do or go or like movies. Nope, can't do that. And if I did go somewhere, just like any other parent, who are you? How long you guys been friends? But with my parents, it was like, I need your license plate number. I need, like, they wanted, how long have you known this person? Is she gay? All these things. So, I was like, I got to get a boyfriend so I can hide this. And I did.
Were you intimate with the boys the same way you were with the girls?
No. I don't believe in virginity, but at that time I did. A girl took my virginity. So sexually, John is the first guy I've ever been with. I've kissed guys, yes, but when it comes to the sexual part, John is the first guy sexually I've ever been with.
So when you say you don't believe in virginity, what do you mean by that?
That whole saving yourself for someone, or just the whole idea around virginity and women.
Like the taboo about it?
Yeah, the taboo of it. And it's like, okay, well, your hymen is breaking and all these things, and the size of your vagina because you've been with this many people. It's just the whole, like that whole idea. That whole virginity thing, and I'm only saying that because I thought that. I'm like, oh, like whoever I give my virginity to is like, this is like the person, and like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah. To me, it's nothing.
Right. So after high school is right when you went into the military?
No. So after high school, I went to college, and that is when it came out again. So I was hiding it. And the girl that I was with in college, the first college I went to, was a girl I had been with from the beginning of 12th grade, probably that summer all the way up until my freshman year in college. So she knew what the home life was like. But in my freshman year of college is when it kind of like went haywire. So yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Going on.
So for a large part of your life, you've been hiding like your true identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does it feel to hear that out loud?
I never thought about it like that until you said that. And it's interesting because when John and I got married, it was easier for me to hide again because I had that same idea with virginity. If I could like change it, and then that idea of marriage, and now I'm married to a man and we're in a heterosexual, union, I have to be all these things.
Right.
So I felt like I hid myself again. So yeah, it feels kind of weird. Yeah, it feels weird.
Yeah. So you had a girlfriend in college, but you also had a boyfriend?
No,
it was just girls?
It was just girls. Yeah.
Did you feel yourself kind of stepping into like who you truly were, or like you felt your identity becoming like more true, that you didn't have to hide anymore and you were able to kind of shed those masks?
Yeah. So from 2003 up until I would say 2013 is when I felt the most authentic, because when I went to college, and yeah, it came out, and my parents, we didn't really get along with that, and it was just a lot going on. After that, I didn't care. So yeah, after I guess it all came out is when I was just like, I don't care anymore. Like I was at Pride, I was holding hands with girlfriends, like I was just being me. And that felt awesome. Even when I was in the military, you gotta hide it to some extent. At that time, it was still don't ask, don't tell. But I was very open with everybody about,
in the military.
No,
or in college. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
In college, and in life. When I was in the military, I wasn't as open because I couldn't be.
Yeah, right.
But the people that were close to me knew I had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So.
When did you graduate?
From high school?
From college?
I didn't graduate from college. I left in my junior year to go to the Navy. I'm actually in college now.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What year did you leave college?
I left 2006. Yep.
Okay. And you left to go into the military?
I left, period.
You just left?
Yeah, I left college because I didn't have enough money to stay in college. My parents were still making a lot of money, and they were still claiming me. So that FAFSA wasn't giving me enough money to go to school. So I left school and I started working. And I was working 2 and 3 jobs at a time just to keep myself going.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I think it was to keep my mind from thinking of what I was going through. But after working, I left my job to go to the military. So.
Got it. What made you decide the military was because you wanted to travel? You wanted to
travel, school, get away,
yeah,
and live life on my own.
Yeah.
Kind of on my own terms.
Right. Yeah. And what branch of the military were you in?
Navy.
The Navy. Mm-hmm. And so you're on a ship?
Yeah.
Just sailing around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
USS Ronald Reagan, the carrier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like?
I loved it. I loved being in the military. I loved every experience that I had. I loved being overseas. My command was interesting, but I'm very appreciative for going and experiencing everything that I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you name all the countries you visited?
Yes. Been to China, Japan, South Korea. I'm going to say United States, but within the United States, Hawaii, Guam, Singapore, Malaysia, Dubai. I'm missing somewhere, but I've been to a pretty good amount of places. Yeah.
And how long did you serve in the military for?
3.5 years.
Do you like it when people say thank you for your service? Or is it kind of weird?
It is weird.
Because it feels weird to say it.
Yeah, because I feel like if they like served in Vietnam or like, don't get me wrong, I served in Operation Enduring Freedom, and I don't want to knock the time that I did compared to the time, somebody did 20 years, but I feel like thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Because you did a lot more.
Right.
So, yeah, it's weird sometimes.
And so after the military, you went back to Detroit, or?
No, I stayed in San Diego. And then I was going to school for a while. I was actually going to school for forensic psychology at the time. And I was just kind of like doing it because it's what I thought I wanted to do. And then after that, my ex was going to school at FIDM, which is a Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. And after she did her first year, her second year had to be in LA. Mm-hmm. So then we moved to LA. And then after we broke up, I came back to San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What years were you in LA in?
2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you like it there?
Yes and no. I love the weather. It looks beautiful. It's nice, but I didn't take advantage of it. I was too in my head. I was too, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but I was too invested in my relationship to not explore and venture out. And I say that in a way of kind of like isolating myself in a way. So I didn't really make a lot of friends. I didn't really do a lot of things on my own. Everything was surrounded by her kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which was, sometimes people do that.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so when you went back to San Diego, what were you doing? You were still in the military, or?
No, I was still in school.
Yeah.
So I was
What were you going to school for?
The same. I was going to school for forensic psychology, and then a couple of months after moving back to San Diego, I was like, something is not like inside. It wasn't right. So in 2000 and when did I got out the military 2010. That's when I discovered YouTube. That was like when YouTube was not even YouTube. Mm-hmm. And I started looking at makeup videos and things like that, and I was intrigued, but I didn't go forward with it. When I moved back to San Diego in 2012, something told me to explore and see what happens. And I went to a school, and I loved it. And they're like, well, I know you want to come from makeup artistry. Why don't you do aesthetics too? Okay, I'm not paying for it. Why not? And I fell in love. So I left school and then I went to school there.
Okay. And so what about forensic psychology was that intrigued you?
I love science. I loved forensics is basically anything that has to do with science. So it could be forensic chemistry, forensic psychology, all those things. So the forensic side, the science side is what intrigued me, but what bored me was the psychology part of it. So, and although psychology can be, you know, science related, I wasn't passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, I was in the military, and although I loved being and doing weather, it was like in the military, it's not what I'm passionate about. So it was like I knew what it was like to get up and go to work and hate work, even though I loved what I did. And I never wanted to do that, ever. And so, yeah.
So when did you move back after you graduated, or after you finished school? You went to beauty school in San Diego, right? Mm-hmm. So when you finished that, you moved back to the Midwest, or?
No, I stayed.
You stayed?
Yeah, I
For
didn't
how much
move.
longer did you stay?
I stayed until 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, I stayed until 2014, and then I moved back to Michigan, and my plan was to stay there, but I came here instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's when you started talking to John again?
No, we kind of started talking in 2013, into 2013, into 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And just talking as friends, or?
To me, yes. To me, yes, because I was dating other women at the time.
Uh-huh.
And it was also, I was just trying to figure things out. It was just really, it was a weird time for me mentally.
Why do you say it was a weird time?
I kind of lost myself. So it was 2013, I think it was. I was with someone else. No, early 2013, I think. And it was the first breakup that I had that, how can I put it? I didn't get any closure, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I was with somebody, and then literally that day, I guess you could say, I'm not with anybody. And I have to fend for myself quick on my feet.
Yeah.
So it was like I ran from that, and I hid from myself in a way. And I was keeping myself busy to not deal with it in a way. So, yeah, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. So has that ever happened to you in any of your other relationships?
No. With the relationship that I had before that one I was just talking about, no. It was more so we grew apart and we were young. So I don't think either one of us knew how to communicate, effectively, to listen, to understand those things. So we kind of just like drifted apart. Mm-hmm. So no, nothing like that had ever happened to me, where it was more so not only a stroke at my ego, like, you're leaving me kind of thing.
Right.
You know who I am? Like, But it was also like, okay, now you have to figure life out quick by yourself on your own. And that was like hard for me in a way. So yeah, it was interesting, but I later on enjoyed the alone time that I had in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And where were you at when this was happening?
San Diego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What'd you think of San Diego?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I miss it. I enjoyed the weather.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my experience there. San Diego will always, be special to me because of how long I was there.
Yeah. So what got you and John talking again?
He was reaching out to me. He was reaching out to me via social media. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. Guys try to talk to me. It's not that big of a deal. But I was also talking to girls. I was talking to women. I was actually talking to 2 different women at the time, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
And I say I lost myself because I was an asshole. Excuse me, I don't know if I can cuss, but
You can cuss. Yeah.
I was an asshole because I was hurting. But
You were hurting other people, or you were hurting yourself?
other people. Yeah. I was mean. I was not nice. But for whatever reason, John, the sincerity and the genuineness that he was like displaying, like got me in a way.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't know what this is. I don't know. So it was just like a confusing time, but also, it was also me kind of reverting back and doing things to please other people in a way.
Right.
So.
And so from San Diego, you came to North Carolina.
To Detroit.
Yeah, to Detroit, excuse me.
Detroit. And I say, typically when somebody asks me, I'll say I came from San Diego to here because I was literally in Detroit for like...
Yeah, I thought you said that.
I was literally in Detroit for like 2.5 weeks.
Right.
Not even... It was just like, not moving here. I'm moving to North Carolina. So,
right.
Yeah, and I was supposed to be in North Carolina for a summer. He's like, hey, do you want to come out for the summer? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything else. Sure. You know, when I got to Detroit, I wasn't working yet. I was looking for jobs. And I actually had a few interviews lined up, but he's like, come on. And at that time I was a free spirit. You want to? Sure. Let's go. You want to go? Sure. Why not? So, okay, I'll go. And then it went from a summer to 2020. I've been here since 2014.
Yeah.
So.
And John knew that you were gay when he was reaching out to you on social media.
Yeah.
Was he making passes? Did you feel any weirdness towards him, or were you just like, oh, that's John?
At first it was like, oh, it's John. Whatever. Yeah. He was like the black basketball player in high school, like whatever.
Yeah.
Obviously, like we have mutual friends from high school. So, hey, yeah, John's trying to talk to you. Sure. Whatever. But at that time,
so you knew he had an interest in you, or
at one point, yeah, one of my friends told me that
when you guys were younger.
No, now that I don't know, but towards him, like I would say, leading up to 2014, one of my friends told me that he had an interest in me. I'm just like, sure he does.
What did you think about that?
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't.
If it wasn't a girl, you didn't care?
Yeah, I didn't. I was like, okay, sure he does.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So when he started showing interest, it was like, it was different. So and I don't mean this in a negative way, but sometimes when you're dating people, oh my God, you're so beautiful and you're so fine and we look good together. Whereas like with him, he knew I was like dealing with a little bit of health issues, and he's like, well, here's some information on it. And I'm just like, oh, you care about my well-being. So that was just like different for me at that time.
Yeah.
Not saying that the people I was dating would have done the same thing, but yeah, I was already being an a-hole. So
yeah. Did you like his interest that he was showing in you?
No, I didn't.
You didn't like it, or you didn't care for it?
Both.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I didn't like it because
you were so dead set on women.
Yes. And that was the gripe in my mind. It was
Right.
like, okay.
Was that why you were being like, was that the asshole in you? That was
Oh,
just
no,
like,
I mean towards the girls.
Yeah.
I think a part of my hurt from not healing from a past relationship would just cause me to be an a-hole. But with him, it was like, I appreciate this. I wish it was from women, but then it could be from women, but I'm not allowing it to be from the women. But then also, interesting, like,
yeah.
But then he's a man. I can't, you know what I mean? So it was just a lot going on mentally that I was trying to figure out and not figure out at the same time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Did you ever say to John, like, hey, stupid, I'm gay? Like,
No. Mm-mm.
I stop.
No, I never did. I don't think I did.
Yeah.
No.
And it never came across your mind to say anything like that. You just allowed him to keep pursuing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But yet you question, you're like, I like women.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So 2014 is when you came to stay with him for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like? Because you stayed with him, right?
Yeah.
Was it? What was your expectation coming here? What was the feeling when you got here? And then how did that transpire? Because he has a life here. He's been here for a minute, right? He went to Shaw. He was living in the area. He had friends. You kind of were just coming into, you knew nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You knew John.
Yeah.
That was it.
At that time, I had no expectation. I didn't come here with. I didn't have any. I was a free spirit, so I was just going with the flow.
Right.
And if it felt right, then I'm gonna go for it. So I came here, and yeah, I mean, at the most, I expected to see like condoms or something everywhere, or like pictures of other women or something like that, because I knew he was like a bachelor and lived on his own. But yeah, I didn't have any expectation for him, myself, or the relationship. I was just going with the flow.
How long did it take before you guys started connecting?
What do you mean?
On a physical or
Sexual?
on a mental, like you came here not expecting anything from John. Obviously, I think he invited you
For a reason.
for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you were like, oh, I'm going to find me some North Carolina girls, or I want to date, or
no. Like if I'm in a relationship, then if I'm in a serious relationship, because I don't want to, take away from my past, but if I see something that is substantially going to grow, then I'm going to be committed. So in my mind, it's tunnel vision. I don't see anyone else. That's how I've always been. So with him, I didn't think about, okay, I'm going to find other women, but that's also something I never thought about. So again, I was a free spirit. So I didn't think about the consequences. I didn't think about where it could go. I didn't think about what life would be like later on and how that was going to mentally impact me. I didn't think about any of those things. So it was just like, we're going to have fun. And we did.
So then how long did it take before you guys became, did you guys go out on dates? Did you go out? Did he?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Did you do your own thing and he did his own thing? And
no, I didn't have any friends here.
So everything you guys did together?
No, he still had friends.
Yeah.
He still did his own thing, but I didn't have anybody.
So did you just stay at the house and just hang out?
Yeah, or I would go to a coffee shop by myself or do whatever by myself.
Yeah.
I tend to drown in work. So for a minute I did that. But when I moved out here in May, that November I was pregnant. So then now I'm pregnant. So now I have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then May 2014 came out here. November 2014, I'm pregnant. February 2015, we're married. July 2015, we have a kid.
Whew.
Yes.
So let's hold on. Whoa.
Yeah.
Let's slow down that roller coaster.
We should have slowed down that roller coaster. That's what we should have done.
When you and John were living together, when did you start feeling physically attracted to him?
I don't know.
Did it just happen?
Yeah, but it's weird because I feel like it's one thing to be physically attracted to somebody, but sometimes the physical is attached to the character traits and the personality and all those things. So for me, he's a great guy. He's smart. He's all these things. So the physical part, I ignored, if that makes any sense. That's probably going to come off the wrong way.
Yeah.
But if I'm in love with somebody, I take away the physical part of it and look at all the other things. What else
how else they show up.
Yeah. So, how does he treat his friends? Does he have ambition, goals, all these things? So that's what I looked at the most.
Yeah.
So sexually, if we're talking about like the physical part, it's like, and this is something that I've had to unpack in therapy. When it came to that, I was a pleaser. It didn't matter if I was pleased or if I was okay or if anything like that. It was like, this is what's going to make them happy. So this is what you have to do. And that's what I did, which doesn't, when I'm saying it out loud, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But that's what I did. So,
yeah, I think I'm just trying to understand the dynamic and you moving here, spending the summer with John, and then you guys falling in love. You've been telling yourself your entire life, I'm interested in women.
Yeah.
I'm gay. You've been fighting with your parents with, trying to hide it. And then you come here and completely new environment where you can be whoever it is that you want to be. John knows who you are. He knows that you're gay, has no issues or reservations with that at all. He is obviously attracted to you. And so I guess just the understanding of how that relationship really unfolded. I mean, you put two people under the same roof and they're incredible, amazing human beings. They're going to, one, fall in love with who that person is, and then the attraction and the physical part comes later. How did that feel? Because we talked about this on John's podcast, and I was just blown away by the fact that, like, how mind-blowing it was for you to have, like, and I didn't want to speak for you in a negative manner, but have like these identity issues of like, when you come here, you're gay, you're lesbian, then you meet, you and John start getting intimate.
Yeah.
You become
Pregnant.
Yeah, I was going to say sexual, but that's next.
Yeah.
And then you're pregnant. And so, okay, you're pregnant. Did you ever think that you wanted to become pregnant?
I never wanted to have children. I never ever wanted to have kids.
Yeah.
I said when I was younger, if I wanted to have a kid, I wanted to save and adopt a kid because I physically didn't want to have children because I was selfish. And I'm saying I was selfish because once I figured out what I wanted to do, I knew what it would take to get there. And to me, it's like, if a woman is selfish and she knows she's selfish, she wants to focus on her career, there is nothing wrong with saying, I don't want to have a child.
Right.
I don't. But for me, I just never, when I was 7, I'm like, I don't want to have kids. I didn't. So when I got pregnant, mind you, I'm still on this high. I'm still on this, I'm out here, we're in love high.
Honeymoon phase.
So it was a happy time. Now, fast forward to July of 2015. Now I have a kid. Now I have physically pushed out a 9-pound, 2-ounce child.
Jesus.
And what a lot of doctors don't, let me rephrase that. What regular medicine doesn't tell you is right after you have that child, your hormones, they decline quick. Postpartum depression. So because I went into this deep, dark state, I'm thinking I have postpartum depression. I called the VA. Hey, I need help this week. Now, they give me help. The lady diagnoses me with postpartum depression. She was a therapist. About 2 months later, something isn't right. The therapist is like, you need a psychiatrist too. Obviously, you know the difference between the two, but they can see from the time that I was in the military, they can see my whole chart, everything. And she's like going through my chart. And she's like, do you remember that you came here looking for a therapist in 2014 of May when you first moved out here? And I'm like, I don't remember that. She's like, because you started dating a man, right? And I was like, yeah. She was like, you came here. Huh. So she's like, do you remember coming 2 months before you had Langston? I was like, yeah, I vaguely remember that. She's like, I don't think you have postpartum depression. She was like, I think you had depression, but the hormones made it come out. It was like the icing on the cake. She was like, you've been suffering for a while. It's just now coming to fruition. And I was like, oh, And then we started unpacking. And then my childhood is what started, coming about. So it was a very interesting time after having Langston, because it was like, now I have this kid. I don't want to be a mother. I'm in this marriage with this.
After you had Langston,
after I had
those thoughts.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for me, it was so many different thoughts. I don't want to be a mother. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Never wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Now I'm having thoughts of women. I'm having regret. I'm having guilt feelings of how I treated my ex, how I treated a girl that I was dating before, John. Then I'm also having guilty feelings of having those thoughts. How do I tell my husband that I'm having suicidal thoughts? How do I tell him that I don't want to be a mom because I'm the one taking care of his kid? In my mind, it's like any woman would want to have him. He's, smart, good looking, all these things. I should just be grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
Like that was like my day to day, every single day. So it was just fight it. You're fine. Your mother's happy too. She's happy that you have a man now. Like all these things were going through my mind. And then it was like I was questioning my lesbianism, but it was also me fighting an internal, fight, because I had this idea that you're a better lesbian if you've never been with a man kind of thing. And then now I'm that, if that makes any sense. So like So you're in your mind, you were less than a lesbian. Yeah. Because when I was younger, I had these very conservative views. So I'm a gold star lesbian. So like I don't know if you've ever heard that,
I've
but
heard of a gold star lesbian.
A gold star lesbian is a lesbian.
Never been with a guy.
Never been with a guy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's what I am. Like,
yeah.
And I would shun other women. Yeah. And it's crazy because it was like, I was becoming the things that I had shunned people for. So it was like, I was fighting my own self in a way. And the biases that I had, it was a lot mentally that I was going through. And then also my past with my mother and everything that we went through.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I want to unpack, and I wanted to be very careful, but I really had, like, I felt, I didn't feel, I tried to feel what it is that you went through.
Yeah.
Moving here, meeting John, like falling in love, getting pregnant, giving birth to a human. I think I even said, like, most women that are gay or lesbian, yes, they have the ability to think, but most of them kind of are like, I don't want to have children. I'm gay. So I was trying to fully unpack like where your mind was at after having a child.
And right after having Langston, I was very confused, very protective though. I have this human that I have to take care of now. He's beautiful. This is mine. So I never had like initial negative thoughts. They came about a month or two later. But they were very serious. They were very serious. Like I did not want to have children. I never wanted to have children. So now it's like I have a child. I'm not supposed to have these thoughts. So now I'm beating myself up over not wanting to have a child. So it's like now I have to overcompensate for me thinking these things. So I have to be.
It's a vicious cycle that just keeps churning. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not supposed to have a child. I have a child. Why am I never wanted to have kids.
Yeah. But then also all of that. And I didn't have any friends out here. And, me and John kind of have a disconnect over this, but he's always been very inclusive with his friends. Everybody that I've met through him has always been, nice and friendly and amazing. But I was like, it's one thing to meet everyone through you, but it's another thing to have your own. And I didn't have anything. I didn't have anyone. I was a stay-at-home mom. I didn't really go anywhere. I didn't really know anyone. So I'm talking to a toddler every day. And then his mother came to live with us. and his mother is hyper religious. So now I cannot talk about things with friends that I have in other places. In my mind, she's going to think different of me if she hears me on the phone talking about my struggles or whatever it is. So it was like, not only was I fighting with myself, but I was a prisoner in my own home because of what I thought his mother was.
Yeah.
So, she is hyper religious, but I was allowing her to control me in a way.
Right.
But on my own.
Why'd she come to live with you guys?
We needed help with Langston. Childcare is expensive.
Yeah.
And I was going back to school, and although the VA, helps with living expenses, they don't help with childcare. So we needed help with childcare, and she came out twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you and John fighting during these times?
No. John and I have never fought. Like, I don't think I can say like we've had disagreements, we've had like small arguments, but we've never like had a crazy argument.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just be animated real quick to keep the from moving.
Listen. So you guys were you open and honest with him about what it is that you were going through?
No.
How come?
Because I didn't want to hurt him. I was scared that it would hurt him. How do I tell the man that I married, my husband, that I missed being with women? How do I tell him that? And at that time, in my mind, it's like, why did I do this to him? He could have, why didn't he choose someone else? Of all, like, why didn't he choose the girl that he was dating before me? Like, she looked better than me anyway. Like, those were my thoughts. In my mind, it's like, he could have had a better life. He could have had the heterosexual life that he wants. Why? Like, all those thoughts were going in my head. So I was forcing myself not to be honest with him because I didn't want to hurt him.
Wow.
In hindsight, it was more so hurting me and us.
Yeah.
Because, and I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but it's like when you have a spouse that's going through a mental illness, that other spouse has to deal with the consequences of you going through that mental illness.
Yeah.
So you both are struggling in a way. So it's like,
it's a partnership in the disease.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm not talking, but I'm hurting every day to even like get up, but I still got to get up because I have a kid, right? He's hurting because he doesn't know what's going on. And he wants to try to figure it out because John is like, all right, this is broken. Let's fix it. Don't care why it's broken, but let's fix it. But I'm not even telling you why it's broken or how it got broken or whatever it is. So, at one point he wanted to fix it when I was starting to be more open with him, but I didn't want that. Like, it was just a lot.
And so you said you had suicidal thoughts. Mm-hmm. How long did that last for? And what is it like to have a suicidal thought when you're a mother of a child and a wife?
Ooh.
And where did the thoughts take you? Was it just a thought?
It was a thought. They were thoughts. When it first started, it was when people started asking me if I was going to have another child. And it's not, you're such a great mom, you should have another one. It's, when are you going to give him another baby? He deserves another baby. When is Langston going to have another sister or get a sister or whatever it is? It's like, no, I don't want any more children. Well, that's not fair. That's crazy. Like, that's what I was getting. It was never, how are you doing? How is motherhood for you? Are you okay? It was always those things, whether it be his family, my family, strangers, Instagram, all these people, they would say those things and people don't realize what that does. And for me, it was like, not only was it annoying, but it was also mentally draining.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I don't want to have any more children. One, it wouldn't be fair to myself because I genuinely know I don't want any more children. But if I did that to myself, what would that do to the child that I already have if he has a broken mother? So that thought, those people saying those things took a toll on me. But then feeling like I was waking up every day, living a life that was inauthentic to me, was very hard, because it was like, how do you identify as a lesbian, but you're married to this man? What? That didn't make any sense to me. So that played a lot on my thoughts. I tried to fight them, but once I realized that like I couldn't, that's when I would reach out again. And during that time is when I stopped seeing the therapist and psychiatrist that I had. So
yeah, who you said you reached out to whom?
Yeah, so in 2016, I reached out to the VA. The VA gave me a therapist, and then from there I trickled to a psychiatrist. When I started going back to school, it just didn't fit in my schedule, so I just kind of stopped going, because I'm breastfeeding Langston full time, going to school full time. And at the time, it was like I have to cook and I have to clean it. In my mind, I'm a wife, so I have to do all these things. So I didn't go. And then 2018, I'm like, I can't keep doing this to myself. So I called the VA. I need help. The VA changed the way they gave care. When the new administration came into office, it was like, okay, Patrick came in on the 5th of March. He's next in queue for a therapist. No, it's Patrick came in on this day. What is his disability rating? How many wars has he served in? Which wars did he serve in? And then we'll put you in line. It was a year-long wait for me to see a therapist. Mm-hmm. So they paid for me to go out in town to see a therapist, but it was only 3 sessions at a time, which didn't make any sense. But the therapist or social worker that they had me see made it worse for me mentally, because when I saw her the first day, of course, it's intake. She's talking to me, history, mom's side, dad's side, all these things. At the end, she's like, what are you here for? I'm like, help. She's like, leave him. What? If you're a lesbian, you should leave him. The more you stay with him, you're going to hurt your child. That the 2 sessions that I was there, that's what she said to me.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was mind blown, because it was like, this is a professional telling me these things. How am I going to do this? I'm not working. I don't have any money. We're struggling. How do I tell John this is what my therapist is saying? What do I do with this? So I'm playing that back in my head. So after the second session, I went on the LGBT Raleigh website. I called 20 therapists and I told them my situation. 3 of them called me back. One of them I'm still seeing to this day. Yeah. And she sees me pro bono.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So
wow.
I took it kind of in my own hands in a way.
Yeah.
And since I've been going to her, it's been amazing.
How hard has it been to talk to John about this? Like everything that we just talked about, because you weren't telling him at the time because you were afraid to hurt him. Yeah.
It was hard because I didn't know how he would take it. I think I was also creating my own narrative in my head. If you just talk to John, sometimes he's very easygoing, and he'll do his best to try to understand. But again, I was creating this own narrative in my head. Yeah. So, yeah, it was hard. And I also sometimes have a hard time trying to get out what I'm trying to say without sounding rude or mean or anything like that. So, sometimes it was hard. Yeah. Yeah.
And so how long did these thoughts, how long were you able to get a grasp on it and really kind of control where your mind went?
I would say about 3 or 4 months after seeing my current therapist. Yeah. Because she would help me understand things from a different perspective, but then she would force me to break it down myself. So it'd be like, okay, hypothetically speaking, not even hypothetically, John deserves a better woman, or how come he didn't choose a different woman? Women would love to be with him. She's like, well, who told you that? I did. How do you know that? How do you know that he would have a better life with someone else? I don't know. I didn't think that through. So it was just like she would do things like that to get me out of my own head and to make my thoughts realistic, if that makes any sense. So
and unpack it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that was what the other therapist wasn't doing. It was like, okay, leave. But I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where this stems from, because I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again, so yeah.
Yeah. So how often do you see the therapist?
Every week now.
Yeah. How helpful has it been?
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Life-saving.
Yeah. Life-saving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mentally saving.
Right.
Mentally saving.
So stepping into now, so in John's podcast, we talked briefly about how you had brought up this new dynamic in what you guys are going through now. And I think he said that, I don't know if we're ready yet, but I have a feeling that this is going to resurface again in a couple of years.
Well, yeah. So I think he thought that this was going to be something, or he knew that we would get to this point. I didn't. I'm like, no, like another person. What are you talking about? Open marriage. When I was researching it, interestingly enough, most open marriages are with, women and men. The man is gay. Some of them were Mormons or whatever it is, or what do you call a mixed orientation marriage. And they either bring somebody in or, whatever it is. And I was just completely against it. Bring three, like none of that. Threesomes, no, just no. But also my mind and my thoughts were biased and conservative, very conservative, because of how I grew up. Like my parents were monogamous. I was in the church. Everything was monogamous, but also like, I'm a lesbian. So
it's so funny to hear you say that you had these conservative thoughts, but the way in which you were raised, yes, conservatively, but you were such an outsider of that.
Yeah.
Man, it's very polarizing.
Yeah, it's very polarizing, but confusing at the same time.
Right.
So when it came down to it, I don't remember the how it happened, but something happened where I'm just like, okay, him and I have to have a talk. Like this, we have to have a talk. So he was in Atlanta. He came back from Atlanta and we had the talk. And he kind of like by that time I had started looking more into open marriages and YouTubing open marriages. I'm like, oh, so it's not, a bad thing. Like it's not like this man has a free for all and, it's not like that at all. It's so many different, when we're talking about polyamorous relationships or ethical non-monogamous relationship, it's a tree and there's so many different branches, it's so many different ways those can be. And I didn't know that. So it was more so him like, Santana, I knew you were gay. It would be kind of like ignorant of me to say, now you're with me and now I'm only with you. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, okay, I see that. And he was like, well, do you miss being with women? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, me too. And I'm like, okay. So, it was, and I don't want to make it seem like, I think when you're talking about an open marriage and there's a woman and a man, people automatically look at the man like he's bringing it up and he's the one that's going to reap all the benefits and all these things. He was the one that suggested it, but I'm like, let's try. Let's figure it out. And if we, put this together, let's create not boundaries, but boundaries.
Yeah. Rules of engagement almost. Yeah.
So yeah, it was just something that we took away the societal view of monogamy in marriage, because that's what we went in with. And that's what was causing me to go crazy in a way. Took that away and tried to create our own dynamic, if that makes sense.
Were you surprised to hear John respond in a way where he was like telling you, like he agreed with you almost about wanting to be with other women? Like, were you surprised that he had those feelings, knowing like, how could I change you? I knew I didn't want to change you, and I knew that this might come up.
Yes, I was surprised, but I was also more so, I thought he was cheating on me, and I was okay with it. In my mind, he's probably cheating on me because he's a man, so in my mind. And I also was like, cool, that's great.
Because now I can do it, or?
No, now he's getting something. Now he's getting fulfilled because I'm not giving him that. So if he's cheating on me, there's somebody giving him affection. There's somebody that's having sex with him. There's somebody that's doing something that I'm not giving him, and he deserves that. When I told my therapist that, she looked at me and she was like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I was like, why not? It makes perfect sense. She was like, but that's not who you are. If you're in this marriage, you want him to be happy, but I don't hear you talking about that for yourself. You deserve the same happiness, the same affection that you want him to have so much.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense.
Right.
But to hear him say those things, no, it was like, it was completely shocking because I didn't think we would have that conversation.
Yeah. How did you create the rules of engagement, I guess you will? And I asked that is because since my divorce, John and I have had extensive conversations on polyamory and ethical non-monogamy, and I have a tremendous amount of fear and wounds and trauma from terms of abandonment from just my childhood and girlfriends leaving me, friends passing away, like all poking at a wound of abandonment. And so I get, when anyone tries to get close, I kind of put a stiff arm out, or like when things get to a certain point, it gets tricky for me. And so I've looked at ways to try and unpack that. And John and I have had several conversations of non-monogamy and polyamory, and I've never done it. I've never experienced it, but I'm intrigued by it, and I think it is difficult. I follow Aubrey Marcus and Whitney, his ex-fiance, and John and I have talked a lot about that. But how did you create these rules of engagement in which you're to operate by?
We just talked it out. We kind of threw out what would work for each of us. For example, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to know who it is. I don't want to, come in contact. Granted, John has been out here for a while, so if he were to know somebody or meet somebody or whatever it is, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to run into the person, So it was like, if you're dating somebody, I don't want to know who this person is, and I don't want to have access to this person. Because to me, it's like, for me, you're having sex with this person, exchanging things, and now they're tagged on Instagram, or they're, just those things I don't want. You can have your own separate relationship or situationships, whatever it is. I just don't want to know them. That's it.
Yeah.
And then what else do we say? We said something like, we came up with communication and being more communicative with each other. We had to figure out what friends meant for us, because for him, he'll say anybody is his friend. For me, it's like, if I have a friend, that's somebody that I can call on when I need them. I have associates, but everybody isn't a friend. And for him, he would say, well, I could use a friend as somebody that I could have a situation. Well, wait a minute now, because you said all these people were friends. So, so it was like, we had to kind of like talk it out in a way.
Yeah. After talking it out, did that bring joy to you? Did that bring fear? Was it like unknown or? Unknown.
It was just, we'll figure out, as I think that's basically what it is figuring it out as we go, because we're both new to this. We both came into this marriage of monogamy. So it's like, okay, we have to figure out, how do we operate, and what does that mean for each of us? But then also, what does that mean for the people that we're with, and respecting them as well?
So he's allowed to date other women. What if he wanted to date other men?
That would be a shock to me. But
yeah,
that's
open.
Yeah,
open game. How do you feel about dating other women, and are you scared or nervous? And the reason why I say that is, and John and I had this conversation where, and I don't want to misrepresent or speak negatively, and it's not to speak negatively, but speak incorrectly about this. But when two women that are lesbians meet, from my perspective of being an outside looking in, it's very much like they dive headfirst into like lust and love, and it's a very quick process. Like you hear all about gay and lesbian women that like meet
the
2 weeks later, they're moving in.
The tattoos.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I had a conversation with John. I'm like, are you scared? What if she finds somebody and falls head over heels in love and creates this new relationship? And so I'm glad that I'm able to ask you this conversation, because, you know, I'm actually, you know, getting it from the source. But are you nervous about that happening, or have you thought about that?
I've never thought about it, but I would say I'm more nervous of dating because I haven't done that in a while. I've never thought about that, but the dating is, and I think it's more so me continuously, the identity and the biases that I had in Hey Santana, like, everybody doesn't see it that way. Just because you're married to a man doesn't mean that you cannot identify as a lesbian. If that's how you identify, that's it. And sometimes I think that when I get into the dating pool, that's going to be something that's, you know what, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel nervousness, is how do I present this to somebody and say, hey, I'm a lesbian and I, you know, enjoy being with women, but I'm married to a guy. How'd you take that? Is that okay with you? You know, so it's just that part is something that I've kind of thought about, but honestly, right now, my most priority is myself, and, you know, finding me, really.
Yeah.
Because to me, it would be unhealthy and unfair to have somebody else come and I'm still not mentally.
And you're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta say it's beautiful, and what it is that you and John are doing. I commend you on it. I think it's
Thank you.
It's not easy.
No.
And it's very unknown. It's very like there's no playbook, there's no rules, there's no. You guys are figuring it out as you go along, and there's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be hurdles, but it's so great to know, you know, just the sense that and the energy that I get from you. Obviously, I know John very well. I can think nothing of like you guys are going to figure it out one way or the other. But I also like the fact that you're doing it to show up not only better for yourselves, but also better for Langston, your son.
Yeah, that was something that used to hurt me, because it was like, now that I have this child, and I know what it's like for your parents to hate who you are. And I feel like, and I literally was talking about this recently, it's like when people around you, the people that you love the most, and my parents are, you know, great, all of that, so I don't want that to come off the wrong way, but I feel like sometimes when you have the people around you, parents, caregivers, whatever, and they're, you know, speaking negativity to who you are, it hinders who you are. So it's like now you can't live authentically, or you're scared to live authentically. And I never ever want Langston to feel like he can't be himself, or he has to live to make me happy, because that's painful, to live your life to make someone else accept you or love you or whatever it is. And that was something that was like, how do I tell this child to live authentically, but I feel like I'm not.
Right.
I'm his first example.
Yeah, I'm not doing it myself.
I'm not doing it myself. His father is. So yeah, that was something that was, it was just hard for me to just have that internally, because it was like this, I have to mold him, and I just want him to do whatever his heart desires, and live happy and do that on his own terms. I'm not doing that. So.
So what are the rules for you? Or there are none?
For me, for John wants to know who I'm dating. And he's
That's funny. You don't want to know.
No, I don't want to know.
He wants to know.
Honestly, I don't care. Like, is she cute? Is she pretty? Great. Got it. That's all I need to know. Now, I do want to know the person's name, and I do want to know if you're with the person. And literally, that's for safety.
Right.
That's how it's been ever since we've been together. You're out with whoever it is.
Just let me know who and where.
I don't care what time you come back. I don't care how long you stay out. You can come at 5:00 in the morning. I do not care. I just want to know that you're safe, because it would suck if somebody were to say, well, do you know where he was? I don't. You're his wife. You're right. It's literally, that's the only reason why I would want to know name, or, hey, I'm with so-and-so and we're, here, or whatever it is. Great. Don't text me anymore. like have fun.
Right.
So yeah. I think that's the only rule.
Yeah. For you.
I think so.
Yeah.
It could be more that I'm not speaking of, but that's like the big rule.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny, the story that he told on the podcast when he went to Atlanta, and he had his ring on, and he was talking to this girl, and she was very standoffish until she saw a picture of you and was like, wait a minute. And he was like, are you trying to talk to my wife? Or are you trying to talk to me?
No, I'm just kidding. No, hey, I think it's awesome that he met somebody. I would say at first, it was interesting because I felt it. I knew it.
Really?
It was weird. He was training for work, and he went 1 week, and then he went another week. And in the middle of that week, I'm like, he's met somebody. I have a feeling. And he did. Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Excited. And when I had the feelings, like, okay, now he didn't tell me at first, and that made me mad. Because I never want to, and we had to have a conversation about that as well, because it's like, I don't want someone else to know something about whatever you're doing before me, and vice versa. But it wasn't spelled out in our rules. So we, it was a little back and forth about that. But it was like, for me, John, and I'm only going off of what he said in his past, he was never somebody that went after girls. Girls kind of fell into his lap. Hey, my friend over here, she's interested in you. Do you want to hook up with her? Kind of thing. I was the first one that he pursued. So him talking to her was like, so you pursued her. Wait a minute now. You didn't, like, you got to tell me, like, so it was kind of like shocking for me, because for him, if he were to do that, that means something. That means a girl intrigued him to the point where he felt confident enough. Not saying he's not confident, but to pursue her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love how you're just so open and honest and okay and excited, and not like, I'm not trying to say that all girls are like this, but there's a lot of majority of women that would just feel it in the pit of their stomach, sick, and like, oh my God, he found somebody else. I'm not good enough.
No. And see, I think that's the issue, is like that ownership, that I'm not good enough. What do you see in her you don't see in me? It's nothing wrong with understanding that there's something someone else can give him that I can't, and vice versa.
And it has nothing to do with you.
And it has nothing to do with me.
Right.
It took me a while to get back to have a high level of self-confidence, but I'm the shit. I know I'm the shit. But that doesn't mean that another woman is not. And just because I know that I am, I don't have to belittle her to make her not be the shit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So if he finds another girls that tickle his fancy, great. Like, she's dope. She got all her teeth. Fantastic. Like,
is she dope and got all her teeth?
That's great. That's awesome. So it's just like, taking away, and I think that's what other people talk about, you know, regular, I don't want to say regular, people that are in monogamous relationships or people that have always been in monogamous relationships. And sometimes when their religion is behind it, they don't think about those other things. So it's like, don't look at it that way. Take the ownership out of it and look at what that other person is giving to this person. You're still bomb. Like, you're still the shit. But so are they. And that's cool too. So
they're still coming back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I was watching a YouTube video, and it was a couple that was talking about non-monogamy and how you make the choice. You're choosing to be with this person every day, or someone else too. That's what makes it very interesting, because you make the choice. So.
Have you dated any women?
No.
No? Have you seen any that you're interested in?
Not in person.
Yeah.
not in real life.
Yeah.
No.
How are you? So you can date women in the area, in the city?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I don't think I would, though. That would be awkward, because I feel like everybody knows. That was something that was hard for me, because everybody knows John.
Yeah.
Everybody knows John. Or someone that knows John. So it was just like, I don't even want to do anything, because I can't do anything on my own or date on my own. So I don't think I would date anybody here. I don't foresee that. If it were to happens. But yeah, I don't know.
So how are you going about finding or dating? Like, are you? You're just like, you're not like on a Bumble or
no,
is it, you know?
No, I had a couple. Of, what is it? Dating apps. I had Bumble. I had OkCupid. I had another one, but once they started asking to pay, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not paying.
So that was recent.
That was like, I think I deleted them in like January or something like that. It wasn't. Yeah, it was. It didn't do anything. Yeah.
So what do you think is next for your relationship?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he'll probably date before me. That's for sure. But other than that, I don't know.
What are your thoughts about bringing a third into the relationship?
Definitely not. No. I think that would be, that's too much.
Yeah.
That's, I think it's awesome that people can do that, but I don't.
You want your own experience.
Yeah.
You want him to have his own,
Yes.
and then you come back and you have each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one or the other, I guess.
Yeah. Especially with, and I could be looking at this and creating my own narrative, but I don't want jealousy to be there. I don't want it. That type of dynamic is not something that I would want. I definitely want him to have his own friendship, sexual relationship, like all those things with someone else, and have that with someone else. Two, I don't want them to feel the need to compete with me or compare me or anything like that. 'Cause like, girl, you're bomb. So.
Right. Are you ever going to expose Langston, your son,
for
to
sure,
any of this?
Yeah, when he's old enough to understand, you are not going to get a cookie cutter or version of marriage, or you're not going to get a lie and then find out later mommy and daddy had an open. No, this is what it is. Questions?
Yeah.
Let's talk it out.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
How do you think your the way in which that you've shown up as a wife and as a mother has evolved and changed from when you first had Langston until now?
Wow. I don't know. I think the biggest change would be that I saw myself as a priority. My therapist has told me countless times that it's always about Langston. It's always about preserving John's feelings. It's all about them and doing for them. And I don't do anything. She's
for
like,
you.
for me.
Yeah.
So that would be it, is putting myself first, and understanding, like, if I'm not okay, how is my son going to be okay? And that I had to like get a grip with that, because as a mother, you always want your child to be okay, and you know, give your child food first, and you go without eating if you just like all those things. And it's like, you got to put yourself first too at some point. So I would say that's the biggest thing, whereas before I did not at all.
Do you feel that after washing away like all these conversations and being able to unpack it all, that your relationship with John has blossomed and grown and evolved and is now in such a better, stronger place?
I would say it's evolved. I don't think it's in a stronger place, but I think it's in a better place. I think we still have a ways to go. And I think that ways is not only just with myself, it's with him as well. We both can work on our communication. We both can do things to better the relationship that we do have. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for anybody that is interested in poly or ethical non-monogamy? Do you have, what's a few words of that you would tell them to help them navigate through, or somebody that's thinking about it? Like what words of advice do you have for somebody that is thinking outside of the normal box?
Do your research.
Yeah.
Do your research. YouTube, books, read, look at other people's experiences. If you know anybody, talk to them. Obviously, everybody's experience is different, and then you can take, you know, what they're saying and then figure out how you want to do that. But if you don't fully understand, you can't go out there and do anything. But then also have an open mind.
Yeah.
I think that is what was like blocking me, is because I thought in my mind, this is what it is. And it's like, we had the discussion, I think it's probably in 2016. And then we didn't revisit it again for another year or so, because in my mind, this is what open marriage is. So it's out of the table, you know, or off the table. So, being open-minded, do your research, talk to people. That's the best advice.
Yeah.
The best advice, yeah.
And so what is it that you're doing now? You're going to school?
Yeah, so I'm in school. I go to Central. I'm in school for business administration with a concentration in marketing.
Okay.
I have a business.
You and John are both in market.
Yes, right. Well, initially my major was chemistry with a concentration in forensics.
Jesus.
Yeah, but so.
You better get that degree.
Yeah, but you know, after you have a kid, your brain doesn't work the same. So advice to women, remember that. But at the time, again, I was nursing Langston full time, and I wasn't sleeping throughout the night because my depression was at its peak. So the insomnia, I would skip class to go sleep at Crabtree. Like, that's how sleep deprived I was. But that also went into my studies, or the lack thereof. So I was like, you know what, let's make an executive decision, and how can I change my major but do a major that's going to benefit me? And then that's when I started, you know, thinking of creating my own business. And I have Lucid Skin Beauty LLC. Yeah. And I do facials, waxing, peels, microdermabrasion. And then I also specialize in airbrush makeup on the side. Okay. So a
lot of makeup, cosmetology,
aesthetics, not
cosmetology. Aesthetics. Thank you. I'm a stupid guy.
Yeah. No,
I don't know that.
You're fine.
I was talking to Candace today, and I was like, "Do I need my crow's feet or get?" And she's like, "They make you distinguished. You're fine. Right. Don't leave them alone." And I was like, "Okay." I was getting self-conscious.
No, you're fine. That's funny. She's funny.
So that's what you're doing now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's through your LLC, so you have your own business. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people will hire you to do their makeup.
Yep, makeup.
And when you do their makeup, you said it's airbrushing?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I do an airbrush base, and I provide, you know, obviously all of the product and things like that, and all they have to do is just hire me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I might need to talk to you for my niece. It's her prom's coming up. Do you do prom?
I do.
Mm-hmm. Do you really? Mm-hmm. All right.
Prom, weddings. I love doing weddings. It's an adrenaline rush for me.
Really?
Yeah. Because brides are crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are.
They are.
But it's also like that gratification at the end. That's what I love.
Yeah. So where can everybody find you?
They can find me at _Santana Maria _ on Instagram, or my business page is Lucid Skin Beauty on Instagram. And that's really it.
Yeah.
I don't have a Facebook or anything.
Don't have a Facebook, no YouTube.
I do have a YouTube, but I don't use it.
You do?
Yeah, I don't use it.
Yeah.
No.
And so what's next in school when you think you graduate?
I don't know. I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want that anxiety or stress. No, it's about a year and some change.
Okay.
So after that, hopefully by then, it'll help me branch out and do more.
Yeah.
So,
What's next for John and you?
I don't know. We shall see.
Yeah?
Yeah, we shall see. Hopefully by, I would say 2 or 3 years from now, maybe he'll have 3 or 4 girlfriends. I don't know.
He'll have 3 or 4 girlfriends.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Lance is going to be like, Mommy, Jessica's here. And I'm going to be like, okay, well, let's go.
We got to leave.
We got to go.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
I didn't even talk about this. John and I were talking on Saturday morning, and he told me that the day that I released the episode of his was on your 5-year anniversary.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And he was like, did you know that our 5-year anniversary was the day that you launched the podcast?
Wow.
Which was pretty surprising. So you guys just celebrated your 5 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's incredible. And Langston is also 5.
He'll be 5 in July.
5 in July. You guys have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I'm so happy that I've been able to at least meet you and meet the better half. I hear so much about you.
Thank
And
you.
I'm always like, when is she going to show up?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish I could, make more trips to Raleigh Raw and do more things, but I'm literally Sunday through Saturday.
Well, we all know what your favorite meal is because he always
Yes.
picks it up after
Yes.
Run Club. And
Yes. I love it. It's literally, I don't want it to change ever.
yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and being so open. And I was, John was like, I don't know if she'll come on. And then I sent you a DM when we were kind of communicating about the episode, I was like, you need to come on. The people are asking for it.
Yes. I was actually shocked. I'm like, are they really? Nobody cares, but
Everybody cares. Everybody. I think it's just new and it's different and it's not the cookie cutter in which people are used to, and so it's intriguing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going to gravitate a lot with your upbringing and the depression and just everything. And we tried to do as best of a job with John to just make sure we represented you, and he's like, Santana would do a better job to answer this. This is a question for her, so I'll answer it for me.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say?
Follow my business page.
Follow my business page, Lucid Skin Beauty.
Mm-hmm.
Lucid Skin Beauty. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, if you made it this far, I appreciate you sticking around. Thank you very much for listening to Just a Recording Podcast. What I'd love for you to do, go on iTunes, go ahead and give me a comment, leave me a 5-star rating, let me know what you think, give me some suggestions of who you might want on the podcast. With that being said, I appreciate you sticking around. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.